This is the Locked On Jets podcast on this Sunday evening. I'm your host, John B. from GangGreenNation.com, here to break down a New York Jets loss as the Jets were defeated by the Los Angeles Rams 19-9 at MetLife Stadium. The Jets fall to 4-11 on the season, and this is a game that should put an end to any discussion of the New York Jets running it back in 2025. Now, to be fair, that was never a good idea under any circumstances. I think a lot of members of the fan base got a little carried away last week when the Jets had a last-minute win over a 3-10 football team in Jacksonville. And suddenly there was this discussion. Should the Jets give it one more try with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and company? Now, what happened last week was fun for a Jets fan. You like winning a game, especially when wins are hard to come by in a difficult season. But a game like last week should not cause your franchise to drastically alter its long-term plans. This was a game where I think the Jets were taken back to earth, and we got a more rational view as to what the flaws are of this New York Jets football team. Now, this was a weird game. We were at a point early in the fourth quarter where there had been 8 possessions in total. This game flew by. Six of the first 8 possessions of this game lasted at least 10 plays, and there were no plays from scrimmage at that point of more than 20 yards. So this was the ultimate bend but don't break game on both sides. And this was the type of game that was it was a coin toss game starting the fourth quarter. You knew it would break one way or another. But despite the bizarreness of this game, we saw a lot of the themes that have plagued the Jets through 2024 rear their heads once again. When you talk about the offensive struggles, the offense has been bad this season through much of the year. The offense in the second half was shut out and only averaged 3 yards per play. On defense, Jets got gashed. Part of the reason the Rams were able to sustain such long drives and part of the reason they weren't making many splash plays is they just stuck to the run game. They realized what the Jets were, especially without Quinn and Williams in the middle of their defense. They ran all over the Jets in this game. The Rams finished the game with 30 carries for 132 yards. They ran the ball 31 times. They only threw the ball 19. On a bad weather day at MetLife Stadium where it was cold, they decided to stick to the run game. Man, special teams. Jets were terrible in special teams. Missed field goal, missed extra points, and then even though the game was over, symbolically Xavier Gipson muffs the punt to eliminate what would have been a long shot opportunity to come back for the New York Jets. Jets were down by 10 points at that point with less than 2 minutes to play. They were out of timeout. So it's not like the Jets were going to come back, but Xavier Gibson symbolically muffs the punt. And this just shows you that this is not a team that's close. When the discussion was about run it back last week, it was almost as though people were saying that this was a Jets team that was almost a good football team. And it's just not the case. This is not a team like Cincinnati where the offense is dynamic. The offense is top of the league and the defense is terrible. This is a team where the defense is very bad. Don't get me wrong. Since Jeff Ulbrich took over, this might be the worst defense in the league. And especially without Quinn and Williams in the middle, there's nobody who can stop the run on this defense. And the Rams ran the ball all over them. Jets could not get off the field to save their lives in a key spot in this game. But the special teams, well, we know the special teams are bad. All year long, the Jets have been plagued by bad special teams, particularly from the kicker. Anders Carlson missed extra point, missed field goal in this one. Certainly not good. The coaching, look, we know the coaching's not good. I can't blame Jeff Ulbrich for how many times he went for it on fourth down because, first of all, the team's 4-10. Second of all, you saw what the kicker did. So I can't get on Jeff Ulbrich for going for it, being aggressive on fourth downs because if the Jets hit those plays, people are praising Ulbrich for being aggressive. In the moment, I always try and analyze coaching decisions based on how I felt in the moment. I agreed with all of his decisions to go for it on fourth down. That said, I think we've seen the lack of discipline on this football team, all the untimely penalties, the big mistakes over and over, guys just not playing smart football. That goes on coaching. And look at the way the defense has declined since Robert Saleh left, since Jeff Ulbrich was the one man in charge on defense. The coaching's bad. But so is the offense. I mean, especially in that second half, Jets couldn't make a big play at all. They averaged 3 yards per play. And a bigger point, and this is a critical thing to discuss when we talk about the idea of running it back one more year with Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers is the guy people want to run it back with. Aaron Rodgers takes a big hit after the offensive line did a phenomenal job protecting him all game. I mean, there were times Aaron Rodgers could had time to eat a steak dinner back there, let things develop down the field. He took one hit and he was injured. He's nursing an injury. If you want to run it back next year with Aaron Rodgers, you need to understand that this is a guy who's 41 now. He's going to turn 42 next season during the season, and he hasn't been healthy for a full season in 4 years. This year, he's been battling injuries all year long. Last year, we know what happened. 2 years ago in 2022, he had the worst season of his career. And when the Jets made the trade, the excuse everybody gave was that he was playing through an injury through 2022. You have to go back to 2021 to find a season where he stayed healthy. And he's 41 years old now. He's going to turn 42 next season. Can Aaron Rodgers play well for stretches of a game? Absolutely. We saw that in the first half. The first half, he was pretty efficient, and his touchdown pass to Devontae Adams was a phenomenal throw, and he was helped by good pass protection. Can Aaron Rodgers play a big game? Well, yeah, we saw that. We've seen that the last couple of weeks. Can he string together a couple of good games? Again, starting with Miami, he played he played 5 consecutive solid halves of football. Two good halves against Miami. Played a good game against Jacksonville. I mean, it was a little up and down in the first half, but he played pretty well against Jacksonville. In the first half of this game, he was good, but he suffered an injury in the second half. His body at 41 years old, it's just not realistic to expect it to hold up over the course of an entire season. And even when we get past the other reasons why the Jets can't consider running it back, and there are a lot of financial issues involved, the fundamental reality is that it's difficult to believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to hold up over the course of an entire season. And it's not going to get better as he ages another year. This is not a team that if the offense was great and the defense was, the one thing holding this team back, then yeah, maybe I could see it. The problem is everything about this team is bad. Yeah, some weeks they play a lot of close games, and some weeks they lose because of the defense. Some weeks they lose because the coaching's no good. Some weeks they lose because of special teams. Some weeks they lose because of offense, and people who want to run it back seem to not be able to admit this. But the thing is, when you have a different formula for losing every single game, it just shows you your team's bad and your team's not close. And yeah, maybe they play a lot of close games, but that doesn't mean they should win all these games. They lose these games for a reason, and it's because this isn't just a bad team overall. Now, I don't think this loss is that damaging for the Jets. I mean, look, they were officially eliminated from the playoffs 2 weeks ago. They've essentially been playing out the string for over a month now. And this team has not had realistic playoff hopes in a long time. But here on the Locked On Jets podcast, we're going to continue talking about this game because there was a big loss, a genuinely big loss for this team. I'm not upset about losing the game. I'm upset about the player the Jets lost in this game. We'll talk about who that is and why it's important as we continue here on this Sunday edition of Locked On Jets. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. How do you stay cozy during the winter months? For some, wrapping up in a blanket with a mug of hot chocolate or watching a movie with family is the best way to spend the month of December. Therapy is a great way to bring yourself some comfort that never goes away, even when the season changes. Therapy has so many benefits. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. And it's not just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Tonight's episode of Locked On Jets is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Jets heading to Buffalo next weekend. That one could get ugly. I'm sure the Bills are going to be a heavy favorite in that one. I don't know why you would think the Jets could win, but if you do think the Jets could win, well, again, FanDuel is the place to get in on the action because you get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. This is the Locked On Jets podcast here on this Sunday evening. The New York Jets were defeated by the Los Angeles Rams 19-9 in Week 16 action at MetLife Stadium. A loss for the Jets at this point, though, really isn't that upsetting. I mean, look, the fan base is divided right now. There are some people who are actively rooting for losses because they want the Jets to get a better draft position. But even if you're a fan who's rooting for wins right now, and I don't think there's a wrong way to be a fan in a season like this. Some people want the better draft position. Other fans just want to have some moments of enjoyment in a lost season. But even if you're one of the latter, I doubt you're that upset over this loss because first of all, the Jets are a really bad football team. But second of all, the loss doesn't really hurt the Jets. This team has not really had realistic playoff ambitions in a very long time. They've been officially eliminated from playoff contention the last 2 weeks. I think one thing that brings both sorts of fans together is the hope that young players play well, the hope that you see young players develop. And, even if you're a tank commander, you're rooting for a loss where they lose in spite of a young player playing really well, because it's all about the future right now for the New York Jets. The present has been grim. The present has been dismal. Tomorrow is officially Festivus. If you're a Seinfeld fan, Festivus was the holiday created by Frank Costanza, which features a dinner where you have what's known as the airing of grievances, where you tell your family members all the ways they've frustrated you in the last year. Jets fans have a lot of airing of grievances with this team at Festivus dinner tomorrow. But one of the bright spots for this team has been Olu Fashanu, who stepped into the starting lineup a couple weeks ago, and that was the permanent move. Olu began the season as a backup at multiple spots around the offensive line. He stepped in after Morgan Moses got injured week 3 against New England, played for a couple weeks, also spent some time at guard. And Jets have received some criticism for this because his natural position's left tackle. But you know what? That's just the way it is in the NFL. If you're not a starter, and Olu did not begin the season as a starter, and with good reason. Jets had Tyron Smith. They had Morgan Moses. They had 2 quality starting tackles. If you don't begin the season as a starter on the offensive line, you got to play multiple spots. But since he stepped in to the left tackle spot, which is his natural position a few weeks ago, for Tyron Smith, it's been outstanding. I mean, it's tough to complain about him. And I think, like a lot of people are saying, well, he finally stepped into his natural position. Now that's the reason he's good. There's probably something to that. But I think, also over the course of the season, he's probably developed on the practice field, because I think he's better than he was early in the season. I think a lot of his issues early in the season were just a lack of strength, as much as it was playing at spots that he was not used to playing. I think he's gotten stronger as the season's gone on. And there's some guys who are ready, plug and play guys day one. They're ready to step in. There's some guys who need a year. But I think we forget that there are also guys who are kind of between the two, where maybe they're not ready to start week 1, but they get a couple weeks of practice under their belt as a rookie, and they hit the weight room. And suddenly, halfway through the season, they're ready to go. And Olu Fashanu has been one of them. And as I was watching this game, it's interesting because I think a lot of Jets fans in the first half were saying, this is more proof we got to run it back with Aaron Rodgers. And you saw how the second half went. And we talked about how that's just not a viable option. What I saw was an offensive line that was dominating the Los Angeles Rams up front, particularly in pass protection. And the Rams were not able to lay a finger on Rodgers through much of this game, even though Rodgers was holding the ball, which has been one of the frustrations I've had with Rodgers through much of the season, has been his reluctance to trust his offensive line to hold up in pass protection, because we talked through much of the early part of the season about how he was just looking to dump it off as quickly as possible. The last couple of weeks, that's changed. And this game, I thought, was a masterpiece by the offensive line. Now, there were some penalties in the second half. Olu got flagged for one that was not his fault. Olu got flagged for an ineligible man downfield. That was not his fault, because he thought it was called as a run play. Rodgers saw something in the defense, so he changed it to, he just threw the ball to an open receiver because he saw an opening. That's one of those things that's nobody's fault. That just, stuff happens, where Olu thought he did the right thing. Rodgers thought he did the right thing. The pass was completed. It worked out well. It was just, sometimes there's a little miscommunication. There was nobody was really to blame for that. But I was thinking, even, no matter what happens at quarterback next year, if the offensive line plays like this, whoever's playing quarterback's going to have a really easy time, because the Jets offensive line was that good in the first half of this game. And it was devastating when Olu went out in the second half. I just hate to see it, first of all, because young players showing such promise. Second, the reps are going to help him. So I hope it's always scary when someone gets carted off the field. That's always, that's frequently the sign of a serious injury. I hope it's not serious with Olu, because he's such a talented young guy and he's been flashing so much. I think the reps the next couple of weeks, they're only going to make him better through the rest of the season. It's just really tough. And, look, I can deal with a loss. Honestly, I wasn't really expecting the Jets to win this game. It's not a loss. What's the difference really between being 5-10 and 4-11? And honestly, I was a little worried that the run it back stuff was starting to snowball a little bit. I thought they were starting to get some momentum for the run it back cause, and with ownership as dysfunctional and as erratic as the Jets have, I mean, I don't know that would have been the best thing for the team. I just don't want to lose Olu Fashanu though, because I've been happy. I was thrilled when the Jets drafted him back in April. I've been watching him. I wasn't expecting him to be as good as he's been since he took over for Tyron Smith in the starting lineup, and he's been great. And so just a tough thing to watch when a young guy coming into his own suffers an injury. I hope he's okay. I hope for his sake, I hope for the Jets' sake that he's okay and he doesn't miss much time. And we saw what happened when Max Mitchell went in there. It certainly was not pleasant for the Jets offense. Jets offense had enough issues in the second half before Olu went down, and they got magnified as the second half progressed. Anyway, that's all for our Sunday evening game recap of Locked On Jets. Tune in tomorrow. This is a daily podcast covering the New York Jets. In addition to bonus episodes like this after games, we have new episodes each day through the week, Monday through Friday. We'll continue talking about the Jets' loss to the Rams. See you then. Have a good Sunday night, everyone.